back. We left off with Catherine talking to us. I have a feeling she's about to break our protagonist's heart. Or something like that, I don't know. Clearly you wouldn't show up in the middle of the night for no reason. Seems you did something with the class representative. She added, saying the last words with particular disgust. Are you spying on me? Yeah, can I? Catherine replied without a sign of embarrassment. I'm flattered. It was starting to seem like the conversation was going the wrong way, as if I'd been ripped out of reality. It wasn't subject to the laws of nature anymore. Oh, Annika. At the moment I had more urgent, more important, even essential matters to deal with. And Catherine was flirting with me like the last year and a half we had been apart never happened. I still don't understand what you're trying to get at. Do I need a reason to come here? Maybe you do, I said quietly. Himitsu doesn't. I was looking at Katya and couldn't figure out what was on her mind. On one hand, of course, I was happy she came. But on the other, she was clearly here for a reason. Himitsu didn't disappear from my life for years. Is that resentment I hear? Yep, that's exactly it. The words rolled off my tongue by themselves, paying no attention to my brain. Part of me desperately wanted to jump at Catherine, kiss her. Not gonna finish that. But another voice was quietly yet persistingly whispering that she was a very different person from the one I used to know and love. Outwardly, Katya had barely changed after all this time, but for some reason, I had the unshakable feeling that I had let a stranger in. Well, apparently I'm not welcome here. She turned around and was about to leave, but I grabbed her by the hand. Wait, I didn't want to offend you, but you must know how this looks from my perspective. You leave without even saying goodbye, then you come back, don't want to talk, and now you're here, acting as if nothing had happened. How do you think I'm supposed to react? Catherine gave it its moment's thought, then sat on a chair and fixed her hair with an elegant gesture. I guess you're right. I just didn't know how to start a conversation or how to act. Although to be honest, she didn't look particularly perplexed. A conversation about what? A week ago, you found a note in your porch. A note? I said slowly. So you were the one who wrote it. What about the handwriting? What handwriting? Catherine was finally surprised. In your notebook, I flipped through your notebook. Are you sure that was my notebook? What? I borrowed one from a classmate to copy the material. Oh, so... I exhaled and powerlessly sank onto the chair opposite from her. But why? I wanted to warn you, but apparently you don't need my warnings, and you know well enough how and who you should talk with. Why didn't you just tell me directly? Well, I'm telling you now, and how's it helping? I shouldn't have come here in the first place. You started. Be so kind to finish. Who's after me, and what do you know about my dad's work? So now you're interested. She flashed her eyes and leaned towards me. What is this childish resentment? If you know something, tell me. I suddenly felt terribly uncomfortable by how close we were. Her face was only half a meter away from mine. Sure. She moved away abruptly, crossed her arms over her chest, and crossed her legs. The very first day we returned to Japan, I overheard my mom's conversation on the phone. She was talking about you and your parents. And the conversation wasn't a calm one. It's obviously you're in danger. And that's it? I smirked impotently. What else do you want to hear? That's all you can tell me? You didn't even bother to ask her mother what's going on? I talked to her. She asked me to stay out of it and told me it had nothing to do with me. Nothing to do with you? I exhaled. You know what? I agree with her on that. It really doesn't concern you. And you've demonstrated your attitude by planting a note. A note with a bunch of mistakes, Catherine. Don't shout at me. What were you expecting after that? I suddenly caught myself. Wasn't this why Catherine couldn't bring herself to come to my place and talk to me openly? Because she was expecting this kind of reaction? I don't want to shout at you. That's the problem. What? You act first and think later. A second ago, I intended to be more reserved, but Catherine managed to kill that intention with a single sentence. And you, do you think much before you act? I wonder how many hours it took you to decide to ditch me without even saying goodbye. Her face finally trembled and looked like she was about to cry. I sent a letter. That's enough. What else could I do? It has everything. Oh, the letter. I jumped and marched to my room. Here, take it and sign here. I returned the unopened letter and threw it at Catherine. The recipient turned out to be unavailable. So you haven't even read it? As you can see. Is that so? Suddenly her face broke into a little smile. Her reaction appeared pretty strange to me, but I was too angry to pay closer attention to it. Yeah, it is. Okay then. She stood up, straightened out her skirt, with a careful motion. Nothing else you want to say? I've said enough. Everything I know. If I learn anything else, I'll tell you. You can find the front door yourself. Good night. She bid me farewell in an appropriately polite tone. When the door closed behind Catherine, I dropped to the chair like a sack of potatoes. It was too much for one day. And that's an understatement. Exhausted, I barely reached the bed and fell onto it without taking my clothes off. Oh, you didn't even take a shower. Ew. 15/09/1987. I was dreaming that Catherine and I were driving along the Great Canyon, fearlessly looking out into the abyss. I was sitting behind the wheel of a kind of open-top SUV you'd see in a movie set in the savannah, with Catherine next to me in the passenger seat. Oh. Happy dream. And suddenly, the SUV's wheel dropped into a pit, and there we were, flying down to the bottom of a ravine from a height of several hundred meters. If I'm not mistaken, moments like these are when people start to pray. I woke up to find myself covered in sweat over my pillow and sheets. But that dream, so vivid in my first moments awake, had almost completely faded away after half an hour of a hot shower. Exactly. Dang, I haven't even been to the States. Yesterday's conversation with Catherine left a bitter aftertaste, like a hangover hitting at the least appropriate moment. Is there an appropriate moment for a hangover? Definitely not. Sure, I was glad that despite everything she still cared about me and awkwardly was trying to warn me. But I couldn't shake the feeling that Catherine was doing so out of a sense of obligation more than sympathy. I wouldn't even dare use the word love even in my thoughts for me. You could accuse her of many things, but indifference and cruelty weren't among them. Sure, maybe a lot of what she did wasn't necessarily for the right reasons. She did it more for her own image than some actual moral principles, unlike you defending someone and punching them in the face. But it's better to do good for selfish reasons than to condone evil by indifference. And there was still the matter of my feelings for her. Of what I was feeling at this exact moment after I had learned about the note, the strangest thing was, somewhere on the edge of my conscious self, I was thinking that the note itself hadn't changed much. Something had broken inside me even before, I guess, when I saw her enter the classroom, wearing a uniform with that nonchalant expression on her face. After that, if someone told me she was a CIA agent, I wouldn't have been too surprised. In any case, I had to make a decision. I couldn't just keep existing in suspension, hanging between her infinite coldness and my feeble attempts to move on. But recently I had found a new, rather unexpected issue to deal with. Along with new relationships I hadn't been looking for, that had turned everything upside down in such a short time. And God only knew what would follow. It was still quite early, but I decided to go to school without waiting for me to. Although after yesterday, she could very well not be coming in the first place. Kagome stood at the front gate, tapping her foot impatiently. Ah, here you are. Well, at least you're on time. How long have you been lying here in ambush? Long enough to get bored of it. You could have waited for me in the classroom. I couldn't. She suddenly grew embarrassed and looked down, but immediately jumped in place and grabbed me by the arm. Let's go. I limply followed her. There was no point in arguing or telling her how inappropriate her behavior was. Ah yes, to the rooftop. Naturally, she brought me to the roof. So, what? Getting anywhere? With what? Are you starting this all over again? Starting what? It's been half a day, what could have changed? You know, sometimes just a few minutes can be enough. Well, something did in fact happen. Catherine's visit, the exchange about the note. I wasn't sure whether I was supposed to tell Kagome about it. On one hand, it had nothing to do with her. On the other, the people threatening me because of my father's work were probably related to Kobayashi Corporation. And the corporation goons had kidnapped her father. In a different situation, I'd have thought that this information was just my business, and there was no need to share it with anyone else, but looking at this strange girl, I somehow felt guilty about hiding the truth. You know, something did in fact happen. Is it so? Kagome brightened up and came even closer. The girl who transferred to our class recently, Catherine. Her mother used to be a diplomat, at least I used to think so. Anyway, Catherine told me that I'm in danger and being watched by powerful people. The corporation? She doesn't know anything besides that. She must find out. Look, not everyone is as childlessly bold and straightforward as you are. Some people actually cherish their lives. Yeah, right. She scoffed and turned away. When it's about that, men lose their mind. What? Nobody was even talking about that. Unexpectedly, even for myself, I got embarrassed. But you're protecting her. I just don't want innocent people to be flattened by your runaway truth-seeking steamroller. Is she that innocent? Catherine, I stopped mid-sentence. Had the thought really only just come to mind? Why would I trust every word she said? To an extent, she had more reasons to lie to me than Kagome did. And if her mother was somehow related to my parents' death, Kobayashi Corporation, and God knows what else, why couldn't she just be helping her? I don't know. Excellent, that's the first smart thing you said today. Kagome beamed. By the way, I have news too. Good news, I hope. I managed to find my father's colleague. Ichinose-san, we tried to reach him on Saturday. Fine, so? I arranged a meeting with him tonight on the waterfront. You're coming with me. Unless, of course, you have anything more urgent, say a date with an American? Look, do you think I'm just playing around here? Honestly, lately it feels like my life took a wrong turn somewhere, and that everything happening now somehow goes against the Akashic records. Are you surprised that I'd like to have Catherine back? To have everything back the way it was? Doesn't seem that weird to me. But I don't live in a vacuum and have to consider other people's feelings, even if I don't agree with them. And Kobayashi Corporation doesn't care about my feelings, so trust me, I know to set priorities. Kagome looked at me right in the eye without blinking, her face growing more and more serious as I talked. When I finally stopped and caught my breath, she kept silent for a bit longer. I hope you really mean it. Don't forget, we meet tonight at the waterfront. And we probably have a chance to abandon her. Probably. Maybe. That's normally how these things go. Classes were going slowly, every minute lasting at least an hour, and an hour feeling like a day. Kyosuke was unusually quiet. Eventually I wanted him to bother me with his traditional pointless talk, just to drive away the malaise. Sorry for coughing, guys. Catherine was sitting behind me. I couldn't see her, but I was confident that she was just as bored looking out the window. By the window, meanwhile, was Kagome, carefully transcribing everything the teacher was saying, staying fully focused on the lesson. How come they could switch from one thing to another so quickly? Whether it was idle observation or their studies. Yeah, my psyche was too reactive. I usually needed too much time to recover from any problems in life. But was such calmness normal either? It was as if they were changing gears. During lunch, I suddenly felt I couldn't bear staying in the classroom where everyone else, except me, had a stable psyche. I was pointlessly wandering around the school and came to my senses only when I found myself in front of the music room of the old wing. Instead of piercing guitar chords, I heard the pacifying sound of a piano coming from it like gentle waves crashing on a tropical beach. I froze in the doorway listening to it. Ellie seemed to be playing a piece of classical music, but it sounded completely alien. I didn't want to interrupt you. I entered the classroom. You again. How long have you been eavesdropping? I haven't. Suddenly recalled Kagome's words. She was in fact provoking me to deepen my relationship with Ellie. After yesterday's conversation with Catherine, the thought scared me even more than usual. If it was the end, if Catherine really no longer cared for me, I'd really have to move on. Start new relationships, among other things. Does it usually happen like that by pure accident? Kids. Mom and I met each other when she spilled juice on me in a canteen. Hey, schoolboy, still here? I have a name, you know. Nikolai. Okay, Nick. Sorry, got lost in thought. About what? Well... Ellie blushed, but quickly got a hold of herself. Poor. I didn't know what to say and looked away. I definitely had an easier time talking to Kagome, and it wasn't just about social status. After all, Ellie was just as much of a schoolgirl as all the others in this building. But the stereotypes that had been a part of Japanese culture for thousands of years were strong, and I couldn't help but be affected by them too. Even though to an extent I couldn't care about her ancestry now, when I imagining there being something between us, I felt different. Dang it, Kagome. Are you gonna interrogate me again? And where's your raving friend? Look, Ellie. Relax, I'm joking. She suddenly laughed and flashed a smile that would never make you suspect her to be the evil heir to a criminal empire. I've been seeing you here almost every day lately, and before I'd maybe meet the cleaning lady twice a year. I like the way you play. Do you play anything? Huh. Let's try something. I didn't know what to say and looked away. Are you gonna interrogate me? Relax, okay. So it doesn't really change anything. Good. Do you play anything? I used to play bass, dropped it though. Wow, were you in a band? Nah, just at home with self-study books. Pity that you stopped. Why? You could have played together. Ellie caught herself and her expression changed. What am I even saying? Go play with your hysterical girlfriend. Maybe you'll at least make a decent manzai. Here you go again. I sighed without a hint of anger. What? Acting like this again. Like what? She put her arms akimbo, which made her look like a noble madam reprimanding peasant girls. I thought you didn't like her attitude. That's because she's... Suddenly Ellie got embarrassed. What? Having a sense of dignity is a crime now? No, unless it turns into a superiority complex. On the other hand, I had something to learn from her. Snapping and being rude to people is far from the best defensive reaction. What do you know? Quod erat demonstratum. I explained victoriously, snapped my fingers, stared at her, and made a silly face that I actually seen in one of those comedy shows that only the Japanese enjoy. If you could see yourself right now. Ellie laughed and the tension finally subsided. By the way, we were giving a performance tonight. You seem like the last time, right? You can drop by. Just don't stare at me the entire time. I wasn't anyway. Can't make it today. Why? You might find it hard to believe, but I have stuff to do. Apart from pulling faces? Yes, and watching TV and horsing around. And this stuff, is it something I'm gonna be doing with that girl? Even if it is, what of it? I just don't want the TV to plot against me and my family again. Our father was missing, you know. I parried coldly. I understand and I'm sorry about that, but... Ellie went quiet and suddenly pouted, which for a few moments made her vaguely resemble Himitsu. Actually, you know what? I don't understand nor do I want to. I'm not Mother Teresa, and I don't have to sympathize with every beggar I come across. What? Sure, you could say Ellie was a bit conceited, but not arrogant like this. Sorry, I didn't mean... Anyway, people go to school to study in case you don't know. She ran out of the classroom. Was she really that hurt by Kagome's words? Yes, Iwamura was capable of... blah blah blah, I didn't mean to skip that. People tend to most vehemently defend the things most important to them. What could a young noble lady hold important? Her pride, I guess? Had Kagome really managed to fight her way into the heart of an enemy's impenetrable fortress and hit its weakest spot? This is also strange. Something tells me the deeper it goes, the messier it gets. I think it's because she likes you and you're obviously going for a different girl, so that's how that... Yeah, girl troubles. However, there was an unfamiliar girl waiting for me at the entrance, impatiently coiling a lock of hair around her finger. Inokin, who's asking? We need to talk, let's find a place. The bell's about to ring. You a nerd? She scoffed contemptuously, looking me up and down. What do you want to talk about? And who are you in the first place? My name is Kawashima. I'm Ellie-chan's friend. Well, let's go then. The girl took me around the corner. She seemed pretty normal by local standards. I hope you realize that you aren't in a normal public school, and Ellie-chan isn't your normal student. You could say that, and? I could say that? She exclaimed and made a face like she stepped in something foul. I'm her friend and I want a lot of trash to hang out with her, and a gaijin to boot. And now there was disgust. In case you haven't noticed, Ellie doesn't exactly look like she's Japanese herself. I smirked. What, you? Ellie sure could choose her friends. You think I'm joking here? The girl was a head shorter than me, but clearly convinced of her superiority. For a moment, I wanted to hit her with a kabedon to see her reaction, but I stopped myself. After all, she could very well be the daughter of a Yakuza boss. Are you threatening me? You want to find out? Kawashima replied without a hint of hesitation. I couldn't say the same about myself, though. Alright, so what do you suppose I did wrong? Like you don't know. Let's not play the guessing game. Was she the one who accused Ellie-chan's of things like that she kidnapped a person and stuff? Did she tell you that? Oh dang, I was a fly in the wall. She's one unpleasant person. If Ellie was sometimes a little too precautious, mostly due to upbringing, Kawashima seemed to be radiating malice. I don't know what she told you, in any case, it's none of your business. It is, I'm her friend. Ellie misunderstood or mistold the story. She shouldn't have told anyone in the first place. It was a private conversation, and it had nothing to do with anyone else. Look at him whine. Is that all? That's enough for the police. The police. At least it wasn't the Yakuza. Well, let's go together. You tell your version and I'll tell mine. We will. She repeated less confidently. What are you waiting for? Grab Ellie and let's go. She was about to reply with something, but then the bell rang. Fine, I'm not done with you yet. I don't know where you're trying at, but I'm watching you. Columbo my butt. I waved a hand after her and hurried to my class. What was that? Why would she tell anyone about something like this? It wouldn't be hard to find a reason to pick on Ellie if I wanted to, but she's never come across as a stupid girl to me. It was some sort of clever game on her part. To get as many allies as possible and what? No matter your angle, it didn't look like a well thought out or organized plan. More like an upset schoolgirl complaining to a friend about the school bore. Kobayashi Jun had asked me to look after Iwamura, but if we continued down this track, her own granddaughter would take both myself and Kagome right to the scaffold. I'm sure he would immediately take action if rumors would start spreading that Ellie was involved in some shady stuff. Having passed through just one set of hands, well, yours, the disappearance of Kagome's father had transformed from a kidnapping by the corporation to a murder in the woods by a schoolgirl. If Kawashima were to tell someone else, new details would crop up. I couldn't let this happen. And the worst thing was Ellie apparently didn't realize how serious the situation was. Except now the adults would have to deal with it. I had to talk to her the moment I could. The lesson had ended and I was about to start looking for Ellie when Kyosuke stopped me. Hey, do you have a minute? No. Michael and I need to talk to you. Michael? Our American friend was indeed hiding behind Kyosuke's massive body. Hello, Michael. He gave me a questioning look. You could never tell what's on his mind. It became clear this conversation was meant to be private. Guys, I really gotta go, I pleaded. Go where? We won't keep you for long. Break's only 10 minutes. Fine. Ellie already made a mess. Another hour wasn't gonna change anything. I sighed and closed my eyes for a moment. Okay, what is this about? We've noticed that you should have... How should I phrase this? Become close with one of our classmates. Kyosuke was stumbling over his words, so Michael took the floor. We're talking about Iwamura-san. Kagome, what does she have to do with anything? See, she's already Kagome. Kyosuke, you know perfectly well I've never understood the local obsession with formalities. I guarantee that Kagome doesn't respect you all any more than anyone else in the school. On the other hand, it's surprising you noticed her existence in the first place. That's exactly the problem, Nick. What do you mean? It seems that you've started paying too much attention to Iwamura-san. And the attention seems to be mutual. What are you two getting at? I knew full well what they were getting at, but I didn't want to admit it even to myself. We have nothing against it, don't get us wrong. He continued in a hushed whisper. We realize that the heart is a wild thing. What? There's nothing between us. Yet. I shouted, but quickly shut myself up. Good thing Kagome wasn't in the classroom. See? I told you. Kyosuke jabbed Michael with his elbow. You got Himitsu-chan. Himitsu and I were just friends, I said with left confidence. We ain't the only ones who noticed that you've grown quite close with Iwamura-san. Even if I have, what of it? You do know what kind of reputation she has, right? No, I don't. What about it? Well, there are rumors. Rumors, huh? And you're the expert there naturally. Nick, we just want to warn you. I don't mind Kyosuke, it's almost his job, but why are you getting into this? Michael frowned but said nothing. Nick, seriously, people are telling stories. I don't mean that you should believe all of them, but there's no smoke without fire. Alright, what are people saying about her? I asked coldly, feeling myself starting to boil up. Why was I reacting like that? Was it my desire to protect Kagome? At that moment, it didn't even cross my mind to ask such a strange question. Kyosuke, don't. Michael carefully put a hand around his shoulder. Kyosuke was hard to stop when he decided that everyone around had to hear his opinion. It's no secret Iwamura-san isn't from a particularly wealthy family. Of course, that's not a crime of itself, but people say she has some issues with social responsibility, if you know what I mean. And who says that? Probably the same people that bully her, and why would you believe that? I mean, I don't, but this was exactly what had been happening that morning a week ago at the school gate. Bullying. But I couldn't even imagine normal students like Kyosuke and Michael were forming their own opinions just based on the rumors those guys were spreading. She works at a restaurant, her grandfather's restaurant. She cooks and takes orders and doesn't sell her body. How do you know? Wouldn't you like to know? I've been there. Michael. I raised my pleading eyes at him. You were the last person I expect this from. Sorry, Nick. He looked away in shame. But Iwamura doesn't seem like the kind of girl to come from a good background. So that's how you think whores usually act? Distant and reserved? Guys, I don't know what to say. We aren't accusing her of anything, but the public opinion. I don't care about the public opinion. Michael said nothing and didn't react to Kyosuke's questioning look in any way. But I said coldly, what? There was supposed to be a but there. You didn't finish. Please continue. My words came out threateningly quiet. It seemed like I was about to lose it. Okay, Nick, calm down. We didn't really mean to offend you or Iwamura-san. We shouldn't have started this conversation. Sorry. Why keep it inside? If you said nothing, would it change your opinion of her? I replied with theatrical mildness. Nick, why is this so important for you? Why do you care so much about what other people think of her? Why? Actually, I couldn't answer that question myself. Is having normal human morals not good enough? Of course, if that's the case. And even if we are in a relationship, so what? What makes Kagome worse than Himitsu, or Catherine, or Ellie? Hey, Kyosuke, tell me. The lack of an inheritance, or a bunch of idiots or friends? Maybe the fact that she pays no attention to other people's opinions and stupid gossip? Nick, he timidly tries to stop me. No, listen to me. If I really decided to date her, would you two just mark me for death, or start bullying me together with those a-holes? Nick, wait. Wait for what? Are you telling me to sit aside, close my eyes, and pretend nothing's happening? If you are, I thought better of you. You should at least know that I believe Kagome is a good person. And if our relationship did turn into something, I'd be honored. Nick. She was standing at the door, wasn't she, of course? Ah, that's how it is, huh? I muttered, not knowing what to do now. Meanwhile, Kagome just sighed and left the classroom. Are you gonna rap her? Guess gas decidedly? No, why would I? What would I tell her? And the bell rang. Sorry again. I have a feeling if you were going after Ellie, something would happen with Ellie there, not Kagome. Kagome never came back, and I completely forgot I had wanted to talk to Ellie. Despite the awkwardness of the situation, I would have an opportunity to explain myself to her soon. That evening, we were meeting with Ichinose. I didn't talk to Michael or Kyosuke until the end of the day, and neither of them were too interested in continuing the conversation. After calming down and thinking it through, I came to the conclusion that I'd probably been a bit too harsh on them. They should have thought for themselves, though, than follow the crowd. But I doubted they did it out of their own malice or lack of moral principle. I slowly made my way to the hallways, heading towards the exit. That was too much information per unit at a time. The amount of consecutive interactions with people exceeded the operational capacity of my brain. He provoked a defense reaction, and I just stopped feeling anything. Misu was waiting for me in the yard. Let's go home, Nico. Why? Let's go. I replied automatically and looked at her with unseeing eyes. How was your day? It was fine. Mine was great. We're almost all ready for the festival. And I even tried on that maid uniform. Nice. In reality, I wasn't sure what she was talking about. Didn't you want to see it? Misu stopped and stomped her feet. You're not listening to me. Sorry. Something's happened to you and you aren't telling me. Fine. I've decided not to force it, but can I at least pretend that everything's normal? Sure. Sure what? Sunshine, I'm really tired today. Honest, I just want to go home and fall asleep. And what made you tired? Well, at the very least it's complicated. And you aren't going to tell me what's so complicated again, are you? I can't really. You could say I signed a non-disclosure agreement. At least I wouldn't need to tortuously come up with an excuse, straining my already poorly functioning brain. I don't want to say it, but are you lying to me? I want to believe you, of course I do, but when you're constantly keeping things away from me, it's becoming more and more difficult. Do you know Kobayashi Ellie? I suddenly got an idea. Not personally, but everyone knows her. Yeah, so we're having an affair. Ah. You should have said you sell drugs. That would have been easier to believe. So, you think I'm not good enough? You should have phrased the question differently. Who else besides me could put up with all this? Yes, sorry. I wearily followed her. When we reached home, I realized that an awful maddening amount of time left before the meeting with Kagome, and I had to fill it in with more of her. Even the thought of existing until the evening was making me uncomfortable. Will you come in? I asked shyly. Not today. Why? Wow, are you really interested? If you have nothing else to do. Something else? Mitsu paused. How could I possibly have anything else to do? You're my job, hobby, duty, and cross all in one. Sorry. As if it was Catherine standing before me. No, I can't come in today. We'll see each other tomorrow. Bye. She didn't wait for my reply and quickly crossed the street. Well, that was a conversation. Yep. Definitely broke her heart. And then Catherine doesn't care that much. Wouldn't surprise if they left. I didn't know what to tell Kagome after that ambiguous scene she had witnessed when I was arguing with those guys. I didn't know how harsh I was supposed to be with Ellie, so that she would understand what she could tell her friends and what she better keep to herself. Ellie. I looked at my bass guitar and that was patiently collecting dust next to my bed. There was a time when I wanted to put it in the wardrobe to get out of the way, but I kept stalling, hoping I hadn't abandoned music for good. Then I got used to it, and the guitar stopped bothering me at all. How do you do it again? I took the bass in my hands, checked the strings, and played a few notes. Not connected to an amp, the sound was dull and unexpressive, but my fingers immediately remembered the feeling. I played a simple bass line from a famous Western song and immediately felt relief. What was the song? You should have mentioned it. Maybe I've heard it. But it felt more like pleasant tiredness you feel after finishing some hard work rather than the disabling exhaustion of slave-like labor. Why haven't I been doing this? I spent so much time in pointless contemplation inside my own head while there was an entire world waiting for me at arm's reach. I put the bass away and felt horrified. Was Catherine alone to blame for that? She ditched me, sending my life tumbling down the slope. But she hadn't even been around for the last year and a half. She hadn't been an invisible shadow trailing me, patiently sabotaging any attempts to change anything. She hadn't been the one placing invisible barriers, stopping me from performing, even the most basic human functions any normal person would find effortless. Catherine hadn't been putting a stone on my chest every morning, stopping me from getting up. No, I think you've realized that you were the one who did that. Because she couldn't help. Because I was in real danger and I didn't want to subject her to the same. Maybe in that case it'd be better to tell the truth, or at least part of it. After all, she wasn't a child. I decided it'd be better to leave that thought to steep for a while and make a decision later. By the time you say something, I'll probably be too late. Playing the bass made time fly, and there I was on my way to meet Kagome. Who knows, maybe we'll run into another agent. I was constantly glancing over my shoulder on the way to the train station, but didn't notice anyone follow me. Either they were real professionals or I wasn't being watched. I doubted Arena would consider a midnight visit to a classmate I barely knew to be normal behavior, but what mattered most was that nobody would find out if we were meeting with Ichinose. I stepped off the train a few stops before my station and made the rest of my way on foot to confuse potential pursuers as much as I could. Finally, I got to the bridge Kagami was supposed to meet me on. Isn't this convenient? It was next to a restaurant, where I'd spent a good hour or even more considering all the maneuvers I made to get here. When I got on the bridge, Kagami was already waiting for me, but something was wrong about her. Hey, I caught it unsurely. She turned to me and everything became clear. She had a huge black eye poorly covered by her bangs. What happened? I fell, she responded, still trying to hide her face. On someone's fist? What does it matter? It matters a lot. I replied indignantly, tried to come closer, but Kagami immediately stepped back. I don't know what you've imagined for yourself, but there is nothing and can't be anything between us. You'd better save that energy for Kobayashi. I had to make a conscious effort not to shout at her. Let's put it this way. I understand that what you heard this morning could appear unexpected, but I was speaking hypothetically. I'm not expecting anything. I was saved by a dark silhouette appearing out of the gloom of the night. Nikolai-kun? Kagami-chan? Ichinose? I immediately recognized my father's friend, although he seems to have aged noticeably since the last time I saw him. Were you followed? No. Kagami just shook her head. I didn't know you two were acquainted. Only by circumstance. The corporation. He said meaningfully and took out a pack of cigarettes. Ichinose looked a bit too calm and it set me a little on edge. Sorry kids, I've only been thinking about myself. What are you talking about? I owe a great deal to your father, Nikolai. We were friends, and to yours as well, Kagami-chan. I knew the corporation would come after me sooner or later. I've been preparing for it, but I wasn't the only one in danger. Ichinose, it's not your fault. I took a quick look at Kagome. She kept standing with a sour face, studying the tips of her shoes. Maybe Ichinose's apologies hadn't quite satisfied her. One way or another, we all knew the risks of being involved in the project. I just had more luck. The project, what are they talking about? The project is what your parents and I were working on at Kobayashi Corporation. What's the point of this project? Not easy to explain. Every scientist was essentially responsible for their own part. I was a physicist while your father was a rocket engineer. For some reason, I'd always thought he designed bridges. Akira would be able to tell you a lot more than me. He was effectively in charge of the project. He never told me. Gomez finally said. Sometimes, it's not worth taking work home. I still don't get it. If he was such an important there, why was he just kicked out? They're dangerous people, Kagome-chan. The life of a single person means nothing to them. When Akira-san did everything that was required of him... Don't say that, she suddenly shouted. Kagome, please. Not now. She looked at me with tearful eyes, and in her gaze I could see a desperate plea for support. However, having found understanding from me, she stared at her feet again. Ichinose-san, I have another question. Yes. Do you know someone by the surname Winters? Winters, he thought about it. Yes, I knew a woman with that name, but she's considerably older than you. And what was Miss Winters doing in the project? The pieces of the puzzle were starting to come together into a terrible picture. No, I don't think she had anything to do with the scientific part of the project. She was more like an administrator from the American side. American side? You didn't think that the project was purely a Japanese endeavor, did you? It's something bigger than that, Nikolai. Multinational, you could say. I didn't think anything, Ichinose-san. A week ago, I believed that my parents' death was an accident. 3 days ago, I believed I was, at least in control of my own life. An hour ago, I was sure my father designed bridges. Bridges, Ichinose-san, not rockets. Nikolai, I understand it's hard for you. Hard, I smirked. But then the most depressing thought was at that moment I was concerned not so much about my parents' death, but rather the fact that Catherine's mother and thus Catherine herself could be involved in it. So that Miss Winters, could she have anything to do with my parents' death? It was a car accident. Ichinose remarked carefully. It's not hard to stage a car crash, don't you agree, Ichinose-san? I've had my suspicions, but there's been no evidence. Miss Winters, I persisted. I don't think she had anything to do with it. But you can't say for sure? No, I can't. What do you have to say? I turned to Kagome. All the time we'd been talking, she stood there silently, as if trying to fade into the darkness of a Tokyo night. What can I possibly say? I don't know. It's your father who's gone missing. My parents can't be brought back, but whatever. We couldn't stand here in the cold until dawn, waiting for Dane to come to her senses, so I took the initiative. Ichinose-san, do you know anything about her father, where they might be keeping him? I can't help you with that, I'm just a scientist. And this issue requires people with greater practical experience. But I still want to help you too. I still have some documents concerning the project. Soon I'm going to leave Tokyo forever anyway, so they're of no use to me now. And what's in those documents? Sorts of information. Trump card, so to speak. He went quiet and smiled bitterly. That's very generous, but how will you... Oh, don't worry, I've managed. Besides, I've lived long enough anyway. It's time to let the next generation take the stage. Thank you. I didn't know what else to say. Then I'll see you tomorrow, same place, same time. We'll be here. Kagome-chan, I hope your father will be alright. Well, happy now? What was that? Ichinose could be our only chance to get the information we need, and you were standing there freezing up like you're a kid at a talent show. You managed to do it well enough without my help. What else do you need? What else? How dare you? I actually lost my breath from anger. Seriously, it's not like they stole my father. We'll see when he hands over the documents. That's it. See you tomorrow. Suddenly Kagome took off, walking quickly away. Fine, go. I shouted after her, and was left standing alone in the middle of the night in an unfamiliar district. I think there was a phone booth around here. And indeed, half an hour later, I was sitting in the back of a taxi as it leisurely brought me home. Seems like we're gonna need the KGB support. 16/09/1987. I returned home long past midnight and immediately fell asleep. I was so tired I couldn't remember a single dream, if I even had any. Probably for the best. Come morning, my head was foggy and I couldn't concentrate. But I had no time for self-pity. Unsolved problems kept piling up. It was beyond my ability to solve most of them, but I could still do something. Kagome's black eye kept bothering me. I didn't know what was stronger, the care for her I didn't understand myself, or the fear of what her emotions could drive her to. Did it really matter right now? Keeping her sensible was in my best interests. Kobayashi-jun had made that very clear. There wasn't much to make breakfast with, so I headed right for school. I found Kyosuke, who was clearly bored of doing nothing. I have something only you can help with. I trustingly put my arm around his shoulder and lowered my head so he could hear me clearly. It's about Iwamura. Hold up, I'll say it right away. I have no desire to listen to another lecture like yesterday. She's being bullied, right? Well, yeah, I guess. I'm not about to moralize at you. I just need information. Who else can I ask if not you? Are you sure you want to get any deeper in this? You don't understand. I'm already way too in deep in this. What? You know this isn't a regular school, and even though it was, there's always people who need some way to prove their status. By beating others? Beat what? No. You'll see for yourself soon. I'm just trying to stop you from doing anything rash, that's all. You might think you're doing the right thing for the right reason, but in the end you'll only make things worse. Both for you and Iwamura-san. I appreciate your concern. Kyosuke looked at me with such pain in his eyes that I couldn't help but feel ashamed for snapping at him and Michael yesterday. Fine. My friend finally sighed and dragged me out of the hall. I don't think anyone here will hear us. You must know Asakura from our class. Yeah, I'll say I do. Come get together. She was with Ellie-sama and that kid teen that time. Apparently he was referring to the accident with the orange juice. Alright. And she wasn't there alone. There were a few other girls. For example, Kawashima-san. I know that one. How come? I'm the one asking questions today. Alright. So, you want to say all of them are part of Ellie's clique? Something like that, yeah. Where can I find this Asakura? I didn't see her in class. They might be behind the school building now, opposite of the swimming pool on the far side. Got it, thanks. I warned you. Let's save before I make a horrible decision. And then proceed to make said horrible decision on my own. Ladies, would you spare a cigarette? Get your own. One of them replied with disgust in her voice. Wait, I know you. You're in my class. Apologies, the name's Anakin, at your service. Well, what do you want? I wasn't their father, their teacher, a policeman, or even a friend. But no pain, no gain. I want you to leave Kagome alone. Who? She's that beggar girl from my class, remember? Yesterday. She didn't fish, only grunting in water. Why do you care? Is it love? What do you look at this knight in shining armor? Did you lose your steed on the way? It's none of your business, just leave her alone. She hasn't done anything to you. And what if we don't? Then I'll tell the principal. Do you think we're leeches like your beggar? Our parents are quite generous with their donations to the school. I doubt the principal would risk losing their money over some garbage that found its way here. Was this what Kiosko was talking about? These were the insurmountable forces of nature? Sure, you could call the KGB and the corporation that, but these arrogant girls? If they were guys, I could at least try and solve the problem with my fists, and fail. A bruised face tends to hurt a lot less than a wounded pride. Why so quiet? You know, in my country, you'd be sent to a prison camp. What? To dig a bolaconal with a spade. He's completely crazy. You're two of a kind. I really have no idea what to do next. Unfortunately, I couldn't send them to a camp. Couldn't prescribe a pyrophlectic slap to the face, or for some reason, couldn't even bring myself to liberate them. That's what Kiosko's talking about, right? Stand your ground. You think you're invincible? I barked at them, which made them deflate a little. Want me to give you a black eye too? Or you? What? Weren't expecting that? What's going on here? I turned around and saw the idiots I'd run into the school gate a week ago. The first ones I saw bullying Kagome. Guys, the girls dropped their cigarettes and ran to them. Hey you. One of them called to me. Well, if you stand your ground, you'll stand it to the end. I came closer. Asakura was the only one left, and the other girls having run away. Not so brave now, huh? You think might makes right. Having the numbers put you on top? Wait a moment. I think I know you. Guys, that's the prick we messed up behind the bar. Ain't you perceptive? You didn't get the memo last time? We can give you another one. He took a step forward, but then I heard a familiar voice. Nick. Michael approached me quickly and stood by me. Is everything alright? I could see the signs of strained thinking on the thug's face. You're not worth getting my hands dirty. Of course, they still had the numbers, 3 against 2. But people like them only attack when they feel they have an overwhelming advantage. They can't take the risk of losing. I found myself thinking that, to an extent, you could even call it a good strategy. Let's go, lads, we'll deal with him later. Asakura left with them without even looking at me. Well, it's too early to call it a complete victory, but we've taken the first step. You literally just saved my life. Don't exaggerate. Well, only a little. Aren't you gonna ask what happened? Kiosuke told me. And you immediately rushed to help me? Let's say I wanted to make sure you had everything under control. Look, I'm sorry for yesterday. I didn't want to go at you guys like that. It's our fault. Kagome doesn't deserve to be treated like that, and if you want to, well, it's your choice. Thank you. His words sincerely moved me, and I firmly shook his hand. Either way, the foundation was laid. Only time would tell whether anything came of my actions or not, but I was sure the next time they'd kick my butt. After all, every revolution starts with a single cry of protest. And this school was long overdue for change. I didn't know whether there were others oppressed the same way as Kagame. I'd never even cared about them before. First, they came for the socialists. Huh. What's different now? Although, wasn't I just using these noble ideals to stand or to distance myself from my own unsolvable problems? The corporations, my parents' death, the KGB, even Catherine. They say many great people had nasty personalities and suffered defeat after defeat in their personal lives. I didn't have time to wonder whether I had a right to think of myself as a great person because my lunch was interrupted by an infuriated Ellie. Ah, here you are. She jumped on my desk and leaned over me threateningly. She wasn't the only one. It's not every day that the great Ellie Sama, queen of our school, visits her classroom. Come with me. I decided not to object. After all, I had also had something to discuss with her. Ellie took me to the roof. Stop, wait. I tried to resist. It was exactly as I thought. Kagome was on the roof too, as if she'd been waiting for us. Ah, you're here too. Ellie was surprised first, but continued in the same threatening tone. Well, you're welcome to listen in. It concerns you as well. What are you thinking, that you could attack my friends? She shouted, addressing me. I didn't attack anyone. So I'm supposed to believe you and not them. You know what? That's a great idea. Ellie tried her best to look intimidating, but mostly resembled a boiling kettle. What? I'm saying you should be more careful with the choice of friends. How dare you? I don't know what they told you, but I looked at Kagome and went quiet. Does she even want me to say it all now to a stranger? Especially Ellie? About the black eye, the bullying? She tried so hard to look strong and hold her own to Ellie in every way. They'd have the right to discuss her problems with someone she would never tell them to herself. But there's no other choice. But what? You just lashed out at my friends for no reason. Threatened them. You're unstable and should be isolated from normal people. Tried to scare them with the police. Practically told them I was a murderer. What do you two need from me? I wouldn't let this continue. I had to say something. Well, there's only one choice now. I'm an honest guy. I did how I was really protecting Kagome by trying to shield her from Ellie's wrath. Do you know that your friends regularly pick on Kagome? I tried to find a gentler way to say it, but eventually gave up on it. They bully and humiliate her, and then they even gave her a black eye. Come on, show her. Kagome proudly raised her head, but I couldn't see the black eye from this far away. So where is it? Ellie smirked. You're not the only one who knows how to use makeup. Kagome said all of a sudden. You can come closer and see if you don't believe it, but I don't need anyone's protection. Aye. She looked far less confident now. You two set it up. And why would we do that? Because you need something from me, and this is how you're blackmailing me or something. Not to be too hard on myself, but that's too clever for me. Why'd I believe you? Just because she got punched in the eye? Well, it's long overdue. Kagome didn't react in any way, but her look was scaring me far more than Ellie's pretended aggression. Haven't you noticed anything about your friends? They clearly aren't the most well-behaved people. They couldn't have done that, why would they? She replied, clearly having lost some steam. It seemed like my assumption wasn't entirely unfounded. Perhaps you really don't understand why people would act the way they do. But they can, and they do, regardless of whether you and I understand them, because they want to. Why would they spend time on someone like her? The way Ellie was talking about Kagome was disrespectful, but Kagome wasn't reacting. To the extent I was even glad that she didn't really understand what was going on. If you don't care about a person, you don't bother with them. That's a better attitude than trying to inflate your ego at someone else's expense. And yet it's the truth. I'd say it's strange I'm the first person to ever tell you that. After all, Kagome, I don't need your condensation. I'm just trying to help. I don't want your help nor protection. You think you're somehow better than them, but you're wrong. Let's try. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens if we run away. Fine, I've warned you. He warned us. Huh. Let's try not to involve her. Your friend Kawashima came at me yesterday. She was saying some garbage about me threatening you with the police. As if you two of you weren't threatening me. Well, we weren't. We were just asking for help. And that's what this is called. She went quiet for a moment, as if looking for the right words, but then continued with the same verse. Who knows with you? What if you bring me out to a forest and off me there? Stop talking nonsense. It's not nonsense. You must be actually crazy to snap at poor girls. Poor girls. I smirked powerfully and threw up my arms in the air. Instead of studying, they smoke behind the school. They pick on other students, yeah. Can't you see your friends aren't angels, to put it mildly? Look who's talking. Ellie scoffed, turned around and walked away. I was left alone with Kagome. The situation seemed to have become even more awkward. Sorry, I just thought you wouldn't want. It's okay. She replied coldly and staring at the tile pattern at her feet. You don't owe me anything. There was no need you to waste so much energy so she wouldn't find out about my situation. If you really believe that, I can catch up and tell her. I was a little offended by this reaction. Go ahead. What did I do to deserve all this? I sighed and sat on the bench. Just don't meddle with other people's affairs. Let's limit ourselves to things that concern us both. Is that how you react to any help you get? What was helpful about that? You should have asked me if I wanted your help first. So, you talk to them or whatever. You think now everything's gonna turn out how you want? They were just gonna hold hands and sing Kumbaya? Is that how you imagined it? Kiyomi seemed to have gotten angry. In reality, all your meddling's only gonna make things worse for me. People only accept punishment when it's complete. Any failed attempt just encourages them. You're practically fruited. I muttered in response, although I knew she was mostly right. So what would have been a successful attempt in your opinion, Ben? You should have stayed out of this in the first place. She shouted and started panicking, panting like she'd run a marathon, but whatever. You only need to come to the meeting with Ichinose tonight. Don't forget. And we'll leave things off there. Depending on what situation happens, I may go back and do one of the other options. Either way, we'll get back here. Hope you guys have enjoyed today's video. If you did, don't forget the like button, comment, and subscribe. I will see you on the next video. As always, goodbye.